False ego, an essential subject from Vinipedia in material existence. One is subjected to the influence of the mind and the senses. In fact, the pure soul is entangled in the material world because the mind is involved with the false ego, which desires to lord it over material nature. Therefore, the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted by the glitter of material nature, and in this way the conditioned soul may be saved from its false ego. One should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects. The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material existence. Srila Prabhupada's books, lectures, conversations and letters offer a comprehensive presentation of this essential subject as seen in the Viniko's false ego category. An introduction from his books is given below in the following 9 quotes. Quotes from Srila Prabhupada's books. False ego means accepting this body as oneself. When one understands that he is not his body and his spirit soul, he comes to his real ego. Ego is there. False ego is condemned, but not real ego. In the Vedic literature, Bhihadrayaka Upanishad 1.4.10, it is said, Aha Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am spirit. This I am the sense of self, also exists in the liberated stage of self-realization. Bhagavad Gita 13.8-12. Material desires are based on the false ego of the living being and are exhibited by his childish and useless activities to conquer the laws of material nature and by his desire to lord it over the resources of the 5 elements. With such a mentality, one is led to believe in the strength of material science, with its discovery of atomic energy and space travel by mechanical vehicles, and by such tiny advancements in material science the false egoist tries to challenge even the strength of the Supreme Lord, who can finish all man's tiny endeavors in less than a second. Armad Bhagavatam 1.1. 1. To achieve such a state of surrender, one has to be free from selfish desires, unaffected by dualities, and devoid of all false prestige. Dualities are born of false ego, the worst enemy of surrender. One who transcends false ego, and with it the effects of duality, is very easily freed from material desires, and then he vanquishes hate, greed, anger, fear, and so on. Renunciation through wisdom 5.1. These sense organs are very easily attracted by the sense objects. Consequently, the horses are described as moving swiftly. On the chariot King Purajana kept 2 explosive weapons, which may be compared to ahakara, or false ego. This false ego is typified by 2 attitudes. I am this body, ahant, and everything in my bodily relationships belongs to me, mamat. Armad Bhagavatam 4.26.13. In the material world the false ego of the living being trying to lord it over the material nature is something like the moths falling in a blazing fire. The moth is captivated by the glaring beauty of the fire, and when he comes to enjoy it the blazing fire consumes him. In the transcendental state the living being is pure in his consciousness, and as such he has no false ego to lord it over the material nature. Armad Bhagavatam 2.2. 17. Identification of the body with the self is called false identification, or false ego. Lord Chaitanya confirms this in his Ekaka. He states that the first result of chanting the Ma mantra, Hare Krishna, is that dirt is cleared from the consciousness, or the mirror of the mind, and then at once the blazing fire of material existence is over. The blazing fire of material existence is due to false ego, but as soon as the false ego is removed, one can understand his real identity. Armad Bhagavatam 3.26. 61. He first attempts to act fruitively for personal gain or sense gratification, and after attempting such fruitive activities for a considerable time, when he is frustrated he becomes a philosophical speculator and thinks himself to be on the same level as God. This false idea of becoming one with the Lord is the last snare of the illusory energy, which traps a living entity into the bondage of forgetfulness under the spell of false ego. Armad Bhagavatam 3.5. 31.